I just haven't seen anything negative here. Just in terms of anybody, it really comes down to fit here and what you expect the
and
Celtics.
health.
Fit and health and what you expect the Celtics to do. Again, I'll throw it out there. Do you see a world in which this flops and flip-flops? Do you see starting them both? Do you see if they're both on the roster, to start opening day? Or do you see Brogdon coming off the bench?
I think he comes off the bench. You got to stick with the double big lineup that was the best in the NBA
Do
last
you?
year. Yeah, how can you not? It was plus 24, John. The numbers are insane over 400 minutes. They were unstoppable.
But does that mean it can't be better?
Well, maybe you go in that direction when it stops working. But to this point, that lineup hasn't come close to
Again,
failing.
it didn't come close because it was the best 5 players that they had also at the times, and that was undoubtedly the drop off.
But the defense was unbreakable too.
But the drop off from those 5 to anyone else you put on the court was pretty significant. So again, it's not saying much that the numbers were that much better. I know they were best in the league, but I don't believe that it can't be improved upon, and I don't believe that over time you can't get more balance throughout and strengthen your rotations in other parts of the game without having to sell out entirely on having all of that into one unit.
Well, what you can do, and you know how important starting is to some guys, and for the game, ultimately, the guys who finish are more important than the starters. So what you're going to look at is, I think, placating Smart as that starter, as the continued leader of the team, and all the different things you say about him by having him in that starting lineup still. I think there's probably benefits to starting the game defensively with Smart over Brogdon. Smart, much more versatile defender, a guy who can defend across positions. And then you can sub Brogdon in for a big, limit Horford's minutes that way, keep Horford in the starting lineup, which is, I'm sure, what he would prefer. And then you have options throughout the course of a game. You can rotate from there, and then you could close with a Brogdon Smart one big lineup if you want. I think that's the best way to go. Why mess with the chemistry of the team by sending Smart to the bench?
It's not messing with it.
I don't think those guys would love that.
Here's the thing. It's not messing with it as much as it is playing around with stuff. What's worse? Coming into camp, coming in and saying, yeah, Brogdon's going to start and Marcus is coming off the bench, or coming in and have Marcus shoot 28% from 3 for the first quarter of the season, and then everybody be clamoring for him to be benched and then do it in season. No matter what, if you move pieces around because you want to try something different at any point in time, early or late, early, middle, late, it's going to ruffle feathers. So with the understanding that you might try different things just to see how they work and just be happy that you have all of these pieces. And if everybody buys into that, knowing basically only Jalen and Jason are guaranteed to start, the rest of you will figure it out. You're all going to play significant minutes, but I just don't know what I'm going to do because we're going to play around with lineups and rotations until we find what we like. That shouldn't be that hard to convey to people. And it should be honestly how everyone plays. And I don't think anybody outside of the Jays has any right to have ego when it comes to starting, when it comes to what, when they play or how much they play. Because they're not stars. The rest of you are complementary pieces. And Marcus Smart has spent his entire career mainly as a sixth man. It's not that insulting to move him in and out of there, because the thing with Smart is, he might not have started, but he closed a lot because he was valuable to what you brought there. And, especially when you're protecting leads late in games, and that's going to happen a lot.
I still think Smart's immensely valuable. So you have to, I think, enter this season saying you're still of enormous stature on this team. This isn't a guy coming in to replace you. This isn't a guy filling your playmaking deficiencies and moving you off the ball. Like, there are so many ways that this could be received wrong from him in particular. And then adding to that, moving him to the bench. I don't think it's a great formula for getting the best out of Smart, because if Smart's here, you still want him to be his most focused, motivated, active self, right? Because he's an enormous part of what they're doing on defense. Still, I think the point guard of this team right now, I think it's close between those two in terms of overall passing. Brogdon, you hope, can improve them throughout the flow of lineups here, but it is a little awkward because Woj drops this, and Woj is a team guy, drops this line that this solves the playmaking need. And does Smart receive that as, oh, I couldn't do it? Like, how personally did Smart take that playmaking point guard status on the team?
I mean,
it's carried it like a badge of honor.
It's been a chip on his shoulder, and honestly, it's been a chip on the shoulder of Celtics fans who I don't know why continued to insist that Marcus Smart is one of those guys. Strictly offensively, he's not. He's clearly bottom third of the league, just in terms of what he can bring to the table offensively. It's just canceled out by his ability to defend because his value is so high because he's this big defensive player of the year, caliber guard who's switchable and does all of these things. So it cancels out. But if you just cut him in half and just looked at him offensively, he's clearly bottom third of the league. And I don't know why people defend it. It's not an insult. You're looking at the whole player, and the whole player is immensely valuable. But I've always said with Smart that I believe he's that guy who you put in there to give the game what it needs instead of say, you're the point guard, run the show, make everyone around you better. I've never, ever thought that was what he does best. I thought he was the best suited on the roster that they had to do it. But why do we delude ourselves into believing that he's actually good at it? He's not. He's not. And it's not an insult because he's still an outstanding basketball player for everything that he does and also a capable point guard. But you needed a little bit more from that position. So I just don't think it's that insulting to say that. I don't know why you can point to certain players and be like, he's not great defensively, but then you continue to insist that somebody who's not great offensively is. His track record throughout his career is that he's not a terrific offensive player, both in terms of his ability to shoot, to get by people and get to the rim, to finish at the rim. And as a distributor, he's pretty good. He's not great. He's not an exceptional ball handler. He's pretty good.
Well, wouldn't you call last year his best offensive season by far?
It was because he stopped doing the stuff he was doing with forcing the issue, trying to take shots, look for his offense.
Because his role changed.
But again, it changed because it had to, and it changed because he's the only guy on the team that could possibly have done it for them last year. And thank God he did, because that really turned their season around. And I've said it, everyone will be like, oh, this is Marcus Smart slander. I credited Smart's turnaround with the season turnaround. The two things I thought were most important: Smart accepting that role. We might have gotten spooked because he thought he was getting shipped at the deadline, but he completely bought in, and you got 40 games from him where he was exactly what you needed him to be, and switching Rob defensively there and kind of playing that free safety where he was just wreaking havoc everywhere, really turned the defense around there. Those two things I thought were the most important things, and it opened things up for everyone else. I still think, again, you just have to look at it objectively and say, yeah, they needed it. They have to know that they needed it. And obviously, because they went out and got a player like this, it's very clear that Brad knew it, and it's very clear that Ime knew it. And
there's no mistake.
Ime's never been super sold on Smart the point guard. I think he likes Smart the player, but I don't think he's sold on Smart the point guard.
No, there's no way. You don't make a move like this if you are. So that's why I ask, where does this land Smart? Because he hasn't been as good in his career off the ball offensively. I think there's some personal feelings about having his role taken away from him, because that's effectively what you're doing here with Brogdon, right? You're positioning him far more often in the role Smart filled last year and had some success with. I'm not saying it's the wrong move. They clearly... You look at that playoff run, and we went back and forth about this. Like, is playmaking a huge need? Do you need a real point guard, if that's what you want to call Brogdon, because Smart isn't that? I don't know how you could look at their run and say you didn't. It was a turnover every time down the floor. No one could fix it. Smart couldn't, Brown couldn't, Tatum, Horford. No one on the roster could fix the turnover issues. You ask these guys post-game, what can you do to stop the turnovers? And it's just like, oh, be more careful. And the next game, it's 18 more turnovers. So it got to a point where it not only derailed them in the finals, it could have derailed them in the East Finals, and it could have derailed them in round 2. It was consistent, and it got worse throughout the playoffs. So I understand why they did this. There's no doubt that they needed an improvement at point guard. But now you have, by product of that, a challenge chemistry-wise, lineup-wise, and role-wise with Smart, who still, as you said, is immensely valuable. But we know how he is, John. We talk to him all the time. We hear from him. Max had him in the elevator talking about his role. This is very important to him. And you can't deny, you can't understate how personally he might take this. So I don't know what you do about it.
Again, this has followed him since Oklahoma State. This followed him in his first year in the league. This is a guy.
You think he's excited they did this today?
I don't know. I think again, I don't know his mindset. Maybe he's happy to have I don't know. I mean, I don't know his mind. I could see how a competitive person, one like Marcus, who believes he is the right guy for this team at this position, might view this a little bit as so what are you saying about me? You know? So yes, I absolutely.
The answer is to start him and bring Brogdon off the bench because you can.
I'm not into placating. I'm not into doing that. Once you do that,
what if you get a worse version of Smart because
you talk about identity? If you need to pacify somebody by handing them handing them a binky and saying you still get to start because I don't want you upset, you've already got chemistry problems. Especially if you believe, the coach believes, or other people on the team believe someone else is better suited to start. As soon as you put somebody in there just simply to pacify their ego, you've got a problem. You're not talking about a 22-year-old kid that hasn't earned it yet.
It's not just pacifying him because he hasn't earned. That starting lineup still has huge ceiling just because of the defense.
Bobby, you're not wrong, but if you're doing it simply because you're worried about how Marcus is going to feel, you brought in Brogdon. He's not a friggin' 22-year-old, 23-year-old kid. He's 29. He's a veteran, okay? Everybody here believes they have a right to start, to minutes, to contribute, okay? So I don't care who was here first. I don't care. You play, you fiddle with it until you get the lineups you want, and that's it. That's it. If it's going to be an issue, you've already got chemistry problems. And if you're going to have the same problem you had, when the kids got pissed off because Gordon was playing, you've got problems in-house and you got to solve those problems in-house. You're not going to do it by handing people token starting spots.
No, I don't think it's token because they succeeded last year and they went to the finals.
You know what I mean? If that's the only reason you're doing it, then you've got a problem. But you're right.
Yeah, no,
you can do it comfortably, and you can do it comfortably because they played so well last year.
Yeah, and again, I don't think you want to introduce anything that isn't necessary. If you're still going to get a benefit from bringing Brogdon off the bench very quickly for Al, limiting his minutes by having Brogdon here, allowing those two to play together, and keeping Smart in his starting role where he fits great defensively. And when we were talking about trading for these two, like straight up, I didn't love it. I didn't advocate for it because Brogdon's a solid defender, good point of attack guy. He's not going to defend bigger guys, though, and he's not going to be able to rotate across the perimeter the way Smart can. Like, Smart is a significantly better defender than Brogdon.
Brogdon's a very capable defender, and he's a guy who was an ascending talent. People were talking about him potentially all defensive a couple of years ago. It's really a matter of health. And again, he's not the same as Smart. It's hard to compare people to Marcus Smart. He's the defensive player of the year. Brogdon's a totally capable defender. You're not losing a ton. It's not a massive drop off when you insert him there, as it will be, with Gallinari. When you put him in there, you've got to worry about hiding him, a little bit defensively. You don't have to worry about Brogdon. You can put him in there as the 1 or the 2, and he's going to hold his own.
Yep, and he's incredibly versatile. And, at $22 million, nothing wrong with saying come off the bench if that's what he's got to do. I think he'll be able to swallow that coming to a new team, a winning team after being in Indiana, hurt last year fairly easily. White, going to have to take even bigger of a back seat there, and we'll see if they even think he's worth having part of this team. I still think he is just because he showed some promise as that off-ball playmaker last year. Going to have to get that shot down, though, or he's going to be a really tough fit across a lot of these lineups. Pritchard, I don't know. Is this the end of Pritchard? I think it is.
No, this is what we said. What did the Celtics want to do desperately? What did they want to do? You wanted to slide Pritchard and Grant from your 7 and 8 to your 9 and 10. You just did that in the span of 2 hours.
You think so?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you just inserted 2 people ahead of them. That's it.
Grant's still over Gallinari, I think.
It's questionable. I mean, for all that Grant did, Gallinari does what he does all day offensively. Grant has far more defensive versatility, so obviously he's still got a role here. But you really brought in guys that are going to – and now you get to play more situationally dependent, where guys come in roles that suit them. And you have that flexibility. Before, Grant had to play 25 minutes, didn't matter who you were playing, and so did Derek White because you just didn't have options. Now you can – play around with it and survive. You can give Tatum and Brown some rest and not worry that you're going to have to start Aaron Nesmith. Like you are now, if you were 7 or 8 deep before, you're now 10 deep right now. And you've still got the ability to add, both with a veteran big that you're probably going to bring in, with a veteran minimum contract, and that TPE still out there. Whether or not they're going to use that to swing a $17 million player, I doubt it. I always believed that TPE was more likely to be broken in half and to bring in somebody in the $9-10 million range, and I still wouldn't be stunned if they did something like that. We talked about a guy like Marcus Morris. That would make sense to me. I don't know if they go the full 17, but you still might bring in another player to add depth here. And again, these are champagne problems. Who's starting? Who's closing? You just added. I lost you, Bobby. Can anybody hear Bobby? I cannot, and I don't know if it's a glitch on my end. No, he had to go. Bobby will be, but he couldn't hear Bobby. Okay, yep, I got confirmation. So just to recap, if you're a Celtics fan, who starts, who finishes, these are problems that are going to be worked out during the year. It really doesn't matter at all. You needed depth so badly. You needed offense so badly. You just got 2 depth pieces and much, much, much better offensively than you were 5 hours ago, which is really what's amazing here. We'll bring Bobby back in.
You got me now?
I got you. So again, all of this stuff doesn't matter, and it's no reason for us to tear each other apart. We'll figure out where it goes. Again, you don't know what kind of condition Brogdon's going to be in to start the season. There's a lot of factors in here. You don't know what the Celtics plan to do for someone like Horford. Do they want to give him a break? Do they want to peel back his minutes a little bit? It wouldn't be stunning, right? Do they want to stay with double big? Do they want to kind of vary that lineup? Do they want to have shooting out there more, much more shooting? It could change a lot with their rotations and who they play here, but it's just they've got choices now, which is great.
That would be the easiest, smoothest way to do it is if Horford and them agree that him taking a bench role would be more beneficial. Though, talking to him last year early in the season, starting was important to him. That was something he said was something he would prefer to do. So, again, I think it is important to guys, and we'll see how they shake that out. But as of now, TPE-wise, I don't picture anything happening.
Give me a wing. Give me a wing. Give me a wing. Give me somebody.
Like Malik Bees. It's just expensive for who these guys are. I know Josue love Marcus Morris. I don't see the fit next to Brown and the way he plays. This is your move here, right? This is your big addition. I don't know if you're going to
fits. Marcus is 16'3". I mean, he fits right into it. That's
a big tax hit, though, for a guy that I don't know helps you that much. Right now, by the way, credit at the end of the show, a guy that we've railed on here for 2 years, Wick, making that dive into the tax. Celtics facing a $30 million tax bill after these moves here.
Good.
Perfect.
Good, because you just got a $13-14 million check for staying under last year. So that's that. Half of that is a wash.
Yep. This is great because we weren't sure, but he was right. Do whatever it takes, and Brad did.
It is big hats off because again, if he goes in and they use the full TPE and they don't shift salary out, that'll be interesting as well.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
They'd be up in that Nets Warriors stratosphere at that point. Right now, I think they're kind of in a class of their own in the second tier of teams payment wise with the Bucks. So they're up there. I mean, they've paid. To Wick's credit, he uses that line, we pay. And if you're talking relative to the league, they absolutely pay. Like they're top 5-10 teams in terms of payroll over his tenure there. But there's still a stratosphere above them, whether it's the Nets or Warriors, that are in a different universe, and you're competing with, obviously, after losing to Golden State largely based on depth there.